Kuo Chang's wife and daughter were also controlled. Extraordinary rarity. China and the United States are going to discuss this issue. China quickly sends more ships as lone carrier Liaoning faces 2 U.S. carriers in West Pacific. Xi Jinping wants to use the United States to extend the life of the CCP. Kuo Changs Death. He was poisoned by Shanghai armed police the day after leaving Beijing. Kuo Chang's wife and daughter were also controlled. Kuo Chang, former premier of China, passed away recently and was cremated in Beijing on November 2nd. His death has sparked public mourning and speculation over the circumstances surrounding his demise. Much attention has centered around the control now imposed over Li's grieving wife, Madame Cheng Hong, and their daughter. According to sources, Cheng Hong and Li's daughter have both been placed under control by authorities since Li's death on October 27th. A photo leaked online showed Cheng dressed in black mourning clothes at Li's memorial, her expression grief-stricken. But she has not been allowed to make any public statements or appearances since. Li's daughter, whose name has not been revealed, is also said to be under a form of house arrest along with her mother. Cheng Hong is a professor at the Capital University of Economics and Business in Beijing. The university has announced that her teaching and research activities are now suspended, with students informed not to contact her. The restrictions on Li's family aim to prevent them from making any remarks that could spur public mourning or challenge the Chinese Communist Party leadership. Sources say party insiders are seizing upon the public's wish to commemorate Li to oppose Xi Jinping's hold on power. On the day of Li's cremation in Beijing, the capital was cloaked in heavy smog. No memorial services or ceremonies were announced by authorities. An eerie silence pervaded the city as police were stationed everywhere to deter public mourning. The farewell to Li had the feel of one for an insignificant person rather than a former premier. The CCP's tight control and secrecy around commemorating Li stands in stark contrast to the spontaneous public mourning scene at Li's hometown in Anhui province. Hundreds of thousands have visited to pay respects, bringing flowers, steamed buns, and other simple gifts in a personal show of remembrance. Yet any such public display for Li has been banned in Beijing. Subway stations near Tiananmen Square were shut down to prevent access on the day of Li's cremation. Sources say Cheng and Li's daughter are under even tighter control than others, for authorities fear the family speaking out could seriously undermine CCP authority. The restrictions also aim to prevent any comparisons between the mourning for Li and past leaders like Mao Zedong. As one academic put it, the CPP wants no 10-mile-long lines for Premier Li. The party remains on high alert, nervous that the public wish to honor Li could be used to challenge Xi's leadership. Extraordinary rarity. China and the United States are going to discuss this issue. The Biden administration is holding rare nuclear arms control talks with China on Monday. This is the first such USA-China dialogue since the Obama administration. The talks aim to reduce miscalculation risks amid rising nuclear tensions. The U.S. has long limited nuclear weapons through treaties with Russia. The talks with China are not a signal of similar formal negotiations starting. The meeting will provide insight into China's nuclear thinking and arsenal buildup. China's nuclear stockpile remains much smaller than the U.S. and Russia's. Experts hope regular exchanges with China could enable more substantive arms control dialogues. However, expectations for major outcomes are low. More urgently, Washington seeks to manage dual nuclear threats from China and Russia. This includes whether the U.S. needs to expand its nuclear forces, a politically charged issue. Meanwhile, the Biden administration wants arms control talks with Russia after Moscow suspended compliance with the New START treaty capping U.S. and Russian nuclear warheads. Washington has proposed ideas to Moscow for managing nuclear risks when New START expires in 2026. However, Russia has not yet responded to the proposal. U.S.-China tensions are easing slightly after plummeting last year. The two have reopened some communications channels ahead of an expected Biden-Xi summit this month. But mistrust runs deep. Beijing rejected resuming military leader contacts. Xi's attendance at the summit remains unconfirmed. China historically insisted its small nuclear arsenal justified not joining U.S.-Russia arms control treaties. But as Beijing rapidly expands its nuclear forces, this stance lacks credibility among Western experts. The Pentagon assesses China could double its nuclear warheads to 1,000 by 2030. A U.S. Commission report said America faces two nuclear-capable peer competitors, not just Russia. In June, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan proposed incremental arms control engagement with China. Initial steps could include missile test notifications and crisis communications channels. The U.S. plans to discuss possible bilateral and multilateral risk reduction measures with China. Washington also intends to probe Beijing's nuclear thinking and strategic stability concepts. Expectations for major breakthroughs remain low, but sustained nuclear risk reduction talks could build trust and enable more fruitful arms control efforts down the road. China quickly sends more ships as lone carrier Liaoning faces two U.S. carriers in West Pacific. The Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning and its strike group recently passed through the Bashi Channel into the Western Pacific, according to reports. The strike group included only a few escort ships, the Type 052D destroyer Gilling, Type 054 a frigate Xi'an, and two others. However, Japan's defense ministry monitoring showed the PLA suddenly dispatched 3 batches totaling 6 ships eastward. Chinese military experts speculate this emergency mobilization was related to the arrival of the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson and its strike group in waters south of Japan on October 30. The Liaoning may have felt threatened by a pincer attack and urgently summoned reinforcements. The Carl Vinson left San Diego on October 12 on a patrol mission to the Indo-Pacific. Its arrival with 4 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers featuring Aegis combat systems overmatched the Liaoning strike group in tonnage and combat power. The PLA likely assessed the situation, urgently sent 3 batches of 6 ships to support and monitor. On October 28, the PLA North Sea Fleet's electronic reconnaissance ship Tianwangxing passed through the Miyako Strait heading towards the Liaoning. It likely gathered intelligence on U.S. and Japanese monitoring vessels nearby. From October 29 to 30, a group including the North Sea Fleet's Type 055 destroyer Nanchang, the supply ship Coco Islands, and the East Sea Fleet's Tianwangxing passed through the Asami Strait towards the Carl Vinson. The Nanchang and supply ships were likely tasked with monitoring, surveillance, and containment of the U.S. carrier. On October 30, the Type 052D destroyer Tangshan and Type 054 a frigate Weifang passed through the Miyako Strait. Experts say they were sent to reinforce the Liaoning with enhanced air defense and anti-submarine capabilities. Experts admit China's only other carrier, the Liaoning, is still being refitted, and the new Type 003 carrier Fujian is likely years from entering service. So the Liaoning had to face the U.S. dual-carrier threat alone. The U.S. can sustain 1 carrier forward deployed near the first island chain, with 2 more surges during crises. The Carl Vinson's 18-day Pacific transit shows it could deploy in just 2 weeks during wartime. China must expand its carrier fleet and deployment capabilities to counter this threat. Xi Jinping wants to use the United States to extend the life of the CCP. Beijing and Washington have agreed in principle for Chinese President Xi Jinping to meet with U.S. President Biden at the APEC summit in November, in what is known as the Xi-Biden meeting. Analysts believe that given the heightened international conflicts, economic crises, and major events unfolding in China, Xi is eager to visit the U.S. to leverage America's power to extend the CCP's lifespan and alleviate his precarious situation. The CCP currently faces attacks on 4 fronts: real estate and local debt crises, financial turmoil, massive foreign capital outflows, soaring unemployment, frequent outbreaks, and fierce power struggles among top leaders. All this could cause the CCP's fragile regime to collapse at any time. Xi himself also faces multiple crises, and the ancient prophecy of his assassination could come true. Despite his purges of rivals and overhaul of the military, No amount of maneuvering brings him safety. Internationally, the CCP's global expansionist strategy, including exporting communist ideology, dominating supply chains, threatening regional seas, and building an axis with North Korea and Russia, has led the U.S.-led free world to technologically and militarily contain China. The U.S. 2022 defense strategy names China the top strategic competitor with the intent and growing capability to upend the international order. Facing cascading crises, Xi knows only good U.S. ties can alleviate pressure. Historically, the U.S. has repeatedly helped the CCP resolve crises and survive. Before its rise, the CCP courted America as the representative of the people, inducing the U.S. to abandon the nationalists. After taking power, it turned hostile until the Korean War showed America's strength. Mayo then sought contact to relieve his domestic crises. U.S. engagement aimed to transition China towards democracy through trade and investment. But after the 1989 Tiananmen massacre, the U.S. realized political change in China was impossible. Still, Bush sent an envoy to Beijing, critically extending CCP rule. Today, the U.S. and West are far more vigilant across spheres and won't let China have its way. The U.S. sees China forming a new axis of evil with Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Despite Xi's assurances to Putin, China actively aids Russia militarily in Ukraine. With Israel-Hamas clashes, some suspect China is waging proxy warfare to divert U.S. containment. Given China's ties to key flashpoints, Xi likely hopes to leverage crises to seek sanctions relief and military restraint from the U.S. But global divides have reemerged, and America is unlikely to indulge China's desires. The dynamics are beyond Xi's control. Kuo Changs Death. He was poisoned by Shanghai armed police the day after leaving Beijing. Circumstances surrounding the death of former Chinese Premier Kuo Chang are highly suspicious. Chinese dissident exile Zhao Lanjian has claimed he received inside information that Kuo Chang left Beijing for Shanghai on October 25th with approval from Beijing authorities. The next day, Li died suddenly in Shanghai under mysterious circumstances. There is speculation that Li may have already been under de facto house arrest since disappearing from public view after a trip to Dunhuang in late August. His sudden transfer to Shanghai on October 25th provides an alternative explanation for his disappearance. On October 31st, Zhao Lanjian posted screenshots of 10 leaked points about Kuo Chang's death, claiming he was poisoned on orders of Shen Yuan, commander of the Shanghai People's Armed Police. The leaks allege Li was already dead when he arrived at Shanghai's Shuguang Hospital on October 26th, and top CCP leaders spent 18 hours determining the political positioning around Li's death. Some doubt the leaks, questioning if the Shanghai People's Armed Police would have authority over the security of a top national leader like Li, which is normally handled by the Central Security Bureau. Zha argues Li may have already lost his national leader status and protections if under house arrest in Shanghai. Many find the circumstances highly suspicious. Why was Li taken to a second-rate hospital like Shuguang instead of the prestigious Huashan Hospital affiliated with Fudan University, which was actually closer? Cardiology is one of Huashan's strongest specialties. The timing is also suspicious. Li disappeared from public view in late August shortly after his Dunhuang trip. There are also questions about why the announcement of his death was delayed until around 3 a.m. on October 27th. If he fell ill on October 26th, the rumors emerge amid ongoing tensions between Xi Jinping and the Communist Youth League faction associated with Li and former President Hu Jintao. Li was seen as an impediment to Xi's indefinite rule after Xi broke norms by not naming a successor at the recent 20th Party Congress. While the truth remains unclear, the mysterious circumstances have fueled rumors of elite power struggles and factional infighting within the opaque world of CCPA politics. The strange timing, contradictions, and lack of transparency reinforce perceptions that Li's death was likely neither natural nor coincidental. Unless the CCP regime falls, the full truth may never be known.